Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Quality Counts webinar discussing asset inventory assessments. My name is Roxy Booth. I work on QC's marketing team, and I'll be your host today. On the right-hand side, you'll see a chat box. Please use this area to ask questions throughout the presentation. You can direct them specifically to me in the drop-down, or you can have all attendees view the question, whichever you prefer. We'll address the questions at the end of the presentation during our Q&A time. We're excited today to have Zeke share with us about asset inventory. He's the operations of our video reduction center. He ensures all projects meet requirements, conform to our quality standards, and remain on schedule. He offers a unique perspective because he has a programming background. Zeke manages the HCA, or Horizontal Curve Assessment Sign Inventory Reduction Program, which involves designing, implementing, and monitoring the systems necessary to acquire and deliver the data for projects. So thanks, Zeke, so much for taking the time today to teach us about asset inventory.
Yes, thank you so much, Roxy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zeke Bravo. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend this webinar. Thanks for your interest in asset inventory collection. I hope everyone is doing well during these unique and difficult times. And I also hope that the information I'll be covering today will be useful and perhaps inspiring. Before we begin, I wanted to take a few moments to introduce everyone to Quality Counts and myself. Quality Counts is a traffic data collection firm. We have been in the industry for over 15 years. We have 10 offices nationwide that serve 41 states, and we have roughly 200 employees, and our company is 68% employee-owned. A little bit about me. I've been with the company for over 5 years. I have a degree in computer science from the University of South Florida, and I'm currently a manager of our video reduction center. I started off as a seasonal traffic counter and was afforded the opportunity to apply my skills and grow with the company. Perhaps the most important thing a company can have is a core mission or purpose, and I did want to take a moment to outline what ours is, because I think it's very important. Our core purpose is to improve the decisions that shape communities. One way we do this is by serving you, the traffic engineers, the city planners, the government agencies, all of who rely on accurate data to make the best informed decisions about their projects or programs. I don't want to make this seem too dramatic, but we do take this very seriously. The work that we all do in the transportation industry is essential for the functioning of our society, and the data that we provide is of the highest quality to ensure that correct decisions are made for our future. Many of us are unsung heroes, so if you haven't heard it recently, thank you for the work that you do. Today I'll be covering the MUTCD standard and mandate, why it's important for the community and for you. I'll discuss what asset inventory data collection is and what we can do to help. I'll detail our current experience with this process, and I'll cover our capabilities and requirements for performing this process. So the MUTCD standard, or Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, is issued by the FHWA. Among other things, its goal is to provide a universal and consistent driving experience when driving across the nation. The standard provides guidelines for sign locations and types so that there is the right balance of useful information to the driver. Down on the bottom left is a picture, and you can find many of these pictures. This one is in Britain, but this is also a problem in Europe. And as you can see here, there's a bit of a sign overload. As a driver, we only have moments to make decisions, and what signs are important here, what are relevant to us, and what demands our immediate focus and attention can be overwhelming. On the right is a page from the MUTCD manual that very clearly defines the minimum and maximum locations of signs, the types of signs, and all that essential information so that whether we're driving in Florida or Alaska, we have a consistent driving experience. And this is something that I know I take for granted, but when I take a moment to reflect, it's really something important and really something that we do well. So asset inventory, well, what is it? This is the formal definition defined by the Federal Transit Administration. And basically, it's a list of assets used for planning, and agencies are ultimately responsible for designing, organizing, and managing their asset inventories. Asset inventory, who needs it? Well, any agency responsible for their MUTCD traffic signs will need an asset inventory. We provide live data collection and remote processing services to help achieve those goals. And our services are cheaper, faster, safer than the agencies who are inventorying their signs internally. On the left here is a picture of our Riker car setup where we do horizontal curve analysis as well as asset inventory collection. And on the right here is a screen grab from live video that we collected from. Now, I'm going to cover our current experience with performing asset collection for 3 large government agencies. We worked with NYSDOT, KYTC, and Caltrans, and we tailor our asset collection methods specifically for each of these projects. For New York, we captured all warning signs related to curves. Here's a picture of one of our internal software tools showing what the most common warning signs are and the most common that we capture. This is not exhaustive, but the most common. We captured these signs for the entire state of New York. And I want to take a moment to point out that although we don't officially have an office in New York, with this collection process, we can mobilize to any of the 50 states. So we're not restricted to any particular state, and don't be concerned if we don't have an office in your state. We can travel and plan anywhere and deploy as needed. And this particular project, New York, we had a 1-year turnaround. To date, we have documented 45,000 assets, and here are several visualizations of the data. The picture on the left is a coverage map we use to keep track of our progress. It's consistently up to date, refreshing multiple times an hour. And the picture on the right is signs that we've delivered so far and plotted in a GIS application. So for New York, we performed monthly deliverables, and here's an example of what we've delivered. The first 2 columns are the sign and assembly IDs, and it's worth mentioning that an assembly is synonymous with a pole that any sign can be attached to. So an assembly or a pole can have multiple signs attached to it. And in this case, each pole has a unique assembly ID and a unique sign ID. And then we provide the MUTCD code, any sign text, cardinal direction, longitude, and latitude of each of these assets. So the next project we worked on was in Kentucky, and Kentucky was slightly different in scope in that we were responsible for capturing all MUTCD signs, not just those related to curves. So here I provided a few additional screenshots of our software tool on the most common signs. And as you can see, there are a lot of signs, and we had to capture all MUTCD signs for the entire state of Kentucky, and with a similar turnaround of 1 year. So to date, we've delivered over 400,000 assets to Kentucky. And again, here's more visualizations of the project while we were working on it. For deliverables, we did monthly deliverables for Kentucky, And the main difference with Kentucky is that we provided 2 sets of deliverables, one detailing assembly information and the other detailing sign information. So in addition to the information we provided New York, we also provided the collection date, the assembly type, the sign color, among other things. And the key takeaway here is that we can adjust the asset information that you're most interested in when we do the collection. The next project we worked on was Caltrans, and Caltrans was also unique. And we captured curve advisory warning signs like we did for New York with the addition of a few California-specific signs. Our scope was a little smaller in that we weren't covering the entire state of California, but we were covering the entire District 4 of California. And our turnaround was much more aggressive. We had a 2-month turnaround and we're providing weekly deliverables to our client. To date, we have 3,000 assets documented and delivered for Caltrans. And here are some more visualizations. To the left, the status map, and the right, the signs plotted out. So for Caltrans, we provided weekly deliverables. And another unique aspect of this is that we also delivered sets of data organized by the road that they belonged to. So each facility or roadway had its own set of deliverables with its own set of signs, all signs associated with that roadway. And here is the information that we provide, an example of what we provided them. So what have we learned from these experiences? Well, our collection process is scalable, it's adaptable, and it's highly reliable. So these qualities allow us to tailor ourselves to meet your needs, whatever the turnaround or level of detail involved with assets or the scope of the project. We're highly configurable and can get rolling on things fairly quickly. So scalable collection, we scale our workforce to optimally meet deadlines. Our management processes make it easy to track our current progress as well as project future progress. And this allows us to dynamically find the optimal balance between staff size and processing speed. KYTC in particular required the most staff due to being responsible for capturing all MUTCD signs on the roadway versus just curved advisory signs. And here is a graphic kind of generally relatively showing the size of our force scale to each of these projects. Our collection's adaptable in numerous ways. Each of the 3 projects that I've mentioned require different levels of asset information. And here's a list of various asset qualities that we've captured in one form or another for any particular project. As mentioned before, each agency is responsible for determining the level of detail regarding the assets in their inventory, and we can capture these details based on an agency's requirements. And a good general rule is that any visible quality of an asset can be collected with this method. It's also worth mentioning that assets come in all shapes and sizes and aren't just MUTCD signs. Our official experience is limited to MUTCD signs, but we can adapt our collection method to capture any assets visible on the roadway. This could range from parking meters to fire hydrants or shelters. Any assets and details about those assets, our collection process is capable of gathering. Our collection is reliable and highly reliable from the beginning of the project to the planning of the routes that we have to cover to ensuring the quality of the data. We're constantly double and triple checking our work to make sure the data is of the highest quality and meets our standards. Our sign processors are provided hands-off extensive training for our system. Usually typically takes about 1 week. After that, all of their work is reviewed and verified by our quality control team. And I must emphasize, all of the work is reviewed and verified. When the most dangerous issue we can have during our collection process is missing signs. So that's one of the huge things that we try to identify early on. And in order to do that, we have to review all work for a period of time. And we keep reviewing, and that period of time is typically about a month, where we're confident and the processor has shown themselves to be consistent. But even after that, we still actively monitor and verify a percentage of the processor's work just to ensure that they're continuing to meet our standards. This process is highly is a feedback loop, if you will. Within less than 24 hours after processing, a processor will be getting feedback about what they processed and what they need to make changes for. So on this slide in particular on the left is an example of that feedback we provide, so that the sign processors can get the feedback and then make the necessary corrections. We also have programmatic checks that are performed on the data to quickly identify any potential issues. These checks look for issues with consistency. So an example would be if you had a data set that had 2 signs belonging to the same pole, we'll want to make sure that certain asset qualities of those signs are consistent between the signs. So for an example, if we have 2 signs and one of them is on the left side of the road and one on the right, that's not possible if they're belonging to the same assembly. And our programmatic checks highlight those issues so that we can immediately and quickly investigate those issues. So collection limitations, as far as limitations go, the main 2 limitations we've encountered is that assets must be collected during the day and that they must be visible from the roadway. Here's a picture of the field of view that we have. This was for Kentucky. So you can see it's a very high quality camera with a very high field of view. And as long as we can meet the requirements of it being in the daytime and the assets being visible from the road, we can collect these assets and these asset details. To summarize, the FHWA requires that transportation agencies be compliant with MUTCD standards. Those agencies are responsible for defining and maintaining their asset inventories. We have extensive industry experience in collecting sign asset inventories, and our collection process is scalable, adaptable, and reliable to help meet your needs. Thanks again for your interest and attention during this presentation. We'll have a Q&A now, and I'll turn it over back to Roxy.
Hey, Zeke, thanks so much for all that information. So far, we don't have any questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead and shoot them through the chat box. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you have any follow-up questions or are interested in having quality counts, do asset inventory for you, go ahead and shoot us an email at info@qualitycounts.net. Also, if you would like to reference this webinar in the future, we are planning to post it to our website within the next week or so. It's www.qualitycounts.net. Feel free to share the article with any colleagues or friends who would find it helpful. Otherwise, we don't have any other questions at this time, so I hope you all have a wonderful and safe rest of your week. Thank you so much.